Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sammy George and today we're talking about how to get the best coverage and longevity from your Seint 3D foundation. I'm going to share with you the, I would say, most common 3 things that both I experienced and a lot of new users to Seint experience, and by making a couple of tweaks, how they can get the best coverage that they're looking for. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around and watch. And if you find value, I'd love for you to like and subscribe. And as always, I so appreciate you being here. Tip number 1, we're jumping right in. So when I get a message from a Seint user that says, I like my makeup, but my coverage isn't great, I feel like it's breaking up throughout the day, the first question that I always ask is, what are you wearing underneath your makeup? Because you may not know this, but if you use Seint's 3D Cream Foundation, you want to avoid putting anything on the skin that has silicones in it. Silicones will actually cause the makeup to slip. It'll kind of feel like it's sliding off throughout the day or breaking up. So you want to try your makeup if you're having this issue with nothing on the skin. And as a general rule of thumb, I actually do not recommend using a primer with this makeup. You really shouldn't need it unless you are like someone who is super, super oily. And I would say like above average oily. Things that I use under my makeup on the daily are my Buffet Copper Peptides Ordinary Serum. This is silicone free, and most of the serums out there are going to be silicone free, but it is getting harder and harder to find silicone free products. And then my sunscreen. So 2 sunscreens that I love and recommend for under the makeup are Elta MDs. This is a broad spectrum, it's a clear, and then there is the Glow Screen. So if you are a lover of Glow Screen gives a beautiful kind of, it's like a shimmering finish to the skin, and this is silicone free. If you're somebody that's really concerned about large pores or fine lines and wrinkles, you may not want to use this because anything that you put on the skin that reflects light is actually going to draw attention to those areas. Me, I like all the glow, so while I have large pores, particularly in this area, I don't mind it. I'll take the glow. But something like Elta MD's product is it's not going to leave that finish on the skin at all. And there are certainly other ones, but with a serum and a sunscreen, and you should always put sunscreen on your face, but with a serum and a sunscreen, your skin will be ready to go. Now, if you're really, really dry, and you feel like you have to put something on underneath. If you've ever used our balm, you can definitely use that in areas where you may have fine lines and wrinkles to hydrate that area. There is squalene in our balm, so it'll do a really nice job. But if you're somebody that likes to spot treat areas of your face that may be particularly dry, just find a moisturizer that is silicone free. So for me, I recommend the Good Molecules silicone free priming moisturizer, and I can get this guy right at Ulta. I will link it down in the description box below, but this is a great one, and with it being silicone free, all of these products are, you're not going to get any of that slipping or sliding. Your makeup's not going to break up throughout the day. If you're doing these next 2 things. Step 2, when I'm talking to a client that may be having issues with longevity, is are you using a color corrector? And if you are you using it first in your application? When you get matched by me or by your artist, what they're typically doing is looking at the darkest points of your face first. What I find gives me the absolute best longevity and where I don't notice it breaking throughout the day is when I match the darkest points of my face first, and you will see that discoloration on my face is abundant. And honestly, out of all of the clients I have, I think I've matched 1 client who didn't need a color corrector. I think we attract our tribe. So I tend to have clients that have mature skin and also like skin discoloration needs because that's what they're seeing, how I'm taking care of those things on my skin. So for me, the absolute most important thing to do is to use my color corrector first, and I'll show you that in the application. But what I find is by using my color corrector and then my main shade, I can overall use less of these 2 products and get better coverage than I ever would with using just my main shade alone. Because what happens is alone, my main shade is too light for my skin. And if you start with a color that's too light for your skin, you're gonna notice that you have to apply a lot of it. So now it feels really heavy or it feels cakey, and it still doesn't give you the longevity that you're looking for. You just have a heavier face of makeup. So when I match my customers, I look at their darkest points on their face and what they tell me their skin concerns are, and we start with targeting those areas with a color corrector, and then strategically applying our shades after that so that we can get that all day wear that you're looking for. Because I don't know about you, but if I'm gonna do my makeup, I want it to last 8+ hours. When I have tried to not use a color corrector, or I've been in a hurry and I'm like, I'm just gonna skip that step, my coverage is fine for somewhere between 2 and 4 hours, but after that, I notice any place that I have darkness, so whether it's my under eyes, whether it's my hyperpigmentation, my sunspots, my acne scarring, the scar on my nose, all of those areas start to break through because I haven't targeted the discoloration first. Third, application and tools. So when we're talking application, this is really how to apply in kind of the order of operations, starting with a color corrector that's going to give you that all day wear that you're looking for. So let's jump in and do some makeup, and I'm gonna show you how I get all day wear from my makeup. So like I mentioned, one of the most common things that I see with my clients, with other Seint users that reach out, and in general, when I'm watching Seint artists apply online, is that in order to show the makeup like in its easiest form, they typically show it by either like applying dots strategically into the areas where they would place the makeup, or they swipe it on in larger areas of the makeup so that they can really show how easy it can be. And I have tried all those. When I started with Seint as a customer, I actually did not read my color match fully. I didn't know how to use my color corrector. So I just went in with a dense brush. So this is the 3D brush, and this is the buff brush. And while they're both really great brushes, these are not bad brushes. For medium to full coverage looks, these are great brushes, but I don't recommend them to a first-time user. And the reason being, they are very dense, so there's a lot of density in the bristles, and they lend to really swiping into the product and then swiping it onto the face. And the issue with that is that when you apply too much product, that's what leads to that heavy and cakey feeling. And it's the number one thing that people do when they're getting started, myself included, is they apply too much. So if you're somebody who's using, the cheetah hack method where you're putting dots or stripes on the face and just putting your color where it needs to go, so you're just putting your contour into these areas of the face, you're applying your main shade here, you're putting your lip and cheek here, and some brightener around the eye, and then you're taking your brush and you're blending all these areas together and then going into the contour and blending that when you're done, and you notice that your colors start to like muddy together, or they aren't lasting the way that you want them to throughout the day, there is a better method. And that's what I have been doing now for 2.5 years. It's what I teach all of my clients to do because, like I said, they tend to have similar concerns that I do. And that method is using a less dense brush and building up coverage in thin layers. So this is the blush and bronzer brush. And this brush and the detail brush are the two brushes that I'm gonna recommend to almost all of my new customers, regardless of what coverage level they want, because you can get anything from light to full coverage with these brushes. It's all in knowing how to apply. And like I said, how you're going to apply is building up that coverage in light layers, starting with your color corrector. So if you are one of my customers, you will notice that when you became a customer of mine, you received an email with a YouTube video on how to set up your palette. And the reason I do that is because it's often confusing when you see multiple highlights as to what highlight is which and when do I use it. So I recommend that you put them in your palette in the order in which you're gonna use them until you get really comfortable. And then you can kind of design your palette any way that you want. But you'll see in my palette, my color corrector is at the top. Your color corrector is always going to be the darkest shade because we're gonna match those dark points first. Then I move into my main shade, and it's actually a combination of my color corrector and my main shade together that give me the best longevity throughout the day. Next, I'm gonna contour, and then I'm gonna finally end with my brightener. I like to use a bronzer and a lip and cheek. I have some other goodies on the other side of my palette, and you can certainly build yours however you want. But the main thing is build your palette in the order of operations, starting with your color. I'm gonna show you on my face, and on your face, do the same assessment. Where do I have discoloration today? That's where I'm gonna start. And I'm going to take the small end of the blush and bronzer brush, and I'm going to tap it one time. Literally one time, and you'll see just that small amount of product, and I'm gonna start targeting the discoloration with this buffing motion. Buffing is this small circular motion, and I'm doing this so that I can get the lightest layer of makeup and just start to color correct those needs that I have. And I'm gonna do it one circle, one tap at a time. Areas of discoloration for me is almost anywhere from my brows down. It may be different for you, so you just want to pay attention to your color match. If you are one of my customers, your color match, the face map on your color match will have this marked in blue. But remember, our skin changes every day. So as time goes on and you notice maybe your discoloration is more or less, your dark circles are more or less, just assess your face every morning when you're doing your makeup and say like, okay, what do I need today in order to neutralize that discoloration? And you'll see just from that little bit that I've put on so far, we've already started to tone down that redness that I have in the cheeks. I'm gonna go on to the scar that I have on the top of my nose. And right now, again, I'm just buffing a little bit around the mouth because I tend to pull a little bit green. And I'm gonna come on the other side and I'm gonna do the same thing. Small circular motions, really working that product into the discoloration on my face, one little tap at a time. And by doing this, I'm getting the lightest hand of makeup, which is gonna help prevent it from ever feeling cakey or tacky. And then I either take my finger or the small end of the detail brush and I go on to those areas that I want a little bit more coverage. So right here, I have a sunspot. I have a matching sunspot right here. I'm gonna tap this under the eye where I have dark circles. And all I'm doing is using the warmth of my finger to really press this onto the skin and move it around with one light little tap at a time. Take care of this scar, the broken capillaries under my nose. And if you're somebody who does not love to touch your face, then grab the small end of your detail brush and do the same thing. And I just don't like to tug and pull on the area around my eyes. So I'm just really tapping and pressing this in to distribute the product and keep it light-handed. Cover up that redness on the chin a little bit more. Now, if you're somebody like me who has a lot of acne or acne scarring, you can either go in with this brush or you can pick up something that is more fine tipped, like the spot brush. And that's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap into my color corrector, which for me, it's Mango. And I'm just gonna tap onto those areas where I have scarring. It tends to be deeper and darker than the other discoloration on my face. So this is how I get really good coverage, by still matching those dark points in my face first. And you'll see I have this one area right here. It's a scab. Don't pick your acne. So I'm gonna put a little bit on that today, but with a scab and the texture of a scab, there's not a whole ton that you can do when you have a scab on your face to not emphasize texture. So I'm just touching those areas of scarring. They're mixed in with freckles. So I'm gonna leave my freckles alone. Certainly cover yours if you prefer. And I'm gonna be really light-handed because I don't wanna emphasize the texture of that scab any more than it already is. But I'm gonna get a little bit of coverage there just to neutralize that color because it is pretty dark. And now I'm gonna take a look and see, I'm just tapping on anywhere else that I wanna build up that coverage with my color corrector. And then you can move into your main shade and we're gonna go right back to the blush and bronzer brush. And here's where we're gonna really perfect our application, if you will. I'm gonna do the same thing that I did and I'm gonna tap in one tap, just that little amount of product. And since I've put down my color corrector, now I'm just going to tap or stipple, which is just this little pouncing motion. I'm gonna cover with my main shade anywhere that I put down color corrector. Remember, it's the combination of your color corrector and your main shade together that are really gonna give you that awesome longevity throughout the day. I'm gonna come into this area where I color corrected. And then I'm gonna go back to that small end of the detail brush and get into those smaller areas. And I'm just gonna continue to tap, press this in until I like the level of coverage that I have. So like I said, what I have found through the course of 2.5 years is that if I take care of my areas of discoloration first and then apply my main shade over top of them, and then I can apply it anywhere else that I want coverage. So maybe you just had a little bit of redness on your cheeks. You would also apply your main shade anywhere else on the face that you personally want coverage. And if there's an area that you don't need a lot of coverage, you can leave it alone, especially if it's in your contour area, because one of the awesome things about Seint is all of our highlights and contours provide coverage. So for me, I'm gonna contour around the top of my forehead, which is why I don't put any of my main shade there. I'm also gonna contour under my cheekbone. I did put color corrector and my main shade there, and here's why. While my contour is gonna provide coverage, I still wanna take care of the darkness underneath, because that redness will pull through the day if I just put my contour color right on top of it. So I'm still gonna color correct in the areas that I put contour to make sure that my contour shows true to color and that I'm getting good longevity. I don't want my contoured area to break up while everything else remains like really intact throughout the day. I'm going to add this using the small brush or my finger, whatever your preference is, to those areas that are hard to get into with a big brush. Still using my main shade, and you'll notice the difference between color corrector and my main shade and just my color corrector. With your color corrector being that darkest shade, it's not meant to be worn alone, it's meant to be worn in combination, because when you put down your main shade, now it tones down the warmth of that color corrector, but like we've talked about, because you have color corrected in those areas, you won't have that breakthrough throughout the day. So we will just tap this on everywhere else. And you can build up this coverage to any level that you want. So for me right now, this is about medium coverage. If I wanted to do full coverage, I would just go back in and tap over those areas one more time until I like the depth of the coverage that I got. And it's really a matter of your preference. But that's why I recommend using this brush over one of the more denser brushes when you're getting started. And this brush will give you all of the looks that you're looking for if you're somebody who likes to wear your makeup different, depending on what you have going on. So like on a day where I'm just going to one of my kids' games, I may do a really light hand of makeup and I can absolutely get it with this brush. On a day when I'm going to a wedding, I might do something more medium to full coverage and I will build up accordingly. And for me, that's good. I have the coverage that I'm looking for. I have toned it back down so that it's going to now match my neck. I don't have that overall like too warm looking that your color corrector alone would provide. So I'm now going to move in to my contour. When I move to my detail brush, and I'm going to actually tap my detail brush in sideways. The formulation of our contour is going to be drier than any of your highlights, and it's meant to be because we want to be a little bit more strategic with our contour. We don't want it to blend as easily. So I'm just going to tap it onto half of the brush. And I'm going to use this to stamp on my contour, and I'm still only going to press or stipple this on the same way that I did my other shades, because I do have color corrector and main shade underneath. And if I took the time to put my color corrector down, if I were to buff my product over top of that, I would just mix all of my colors together, defeating the purpose of putting your color corrector down first. So I stamp that on starting at the high point of my ear. I don't go any further than the outside of my eye, and I'm finding that high point of my cheekbone. And after I stamp it on, I'm gonna flick up. And because there's no product on this side of the brush, it really helps it blend well. And you can build up your contour to whatever kind of look that you want. If you want it to be more defined, you can absolutely come in again and tap until you get the level of definition that you're looking for. And the beauty of contour is that it really helps frame the face. So with Seint's 3D foundation, we're playing the game of light and dark. We want to create lightness around the eyes, and we want to create darkness or shadowing in the areas on the exterior of the face. And that really allows us to have that youthful dimension in our face. Contour helps frame and really define those areas that we naturally have shadow, some of which we lose as we age. So I have done my contour under here, around my forehead, being sure to pull it down and press it up into the hairline so I don't have any crazy harsh lines. And now I'm going to do that same thing, and I'm going to go underneath my jawline. I'm going to pull that down the neck so that we have a good blend. Go right in here under that little area of the chin. Add a little bit more to the brush on this side. This really helps snatch your jawline, define it, and mask any jowls that you may have. You can also put a little bit under your lip, And then we can go ahead and press on for a nose contour. And when you're contouring the nose, having this really precise end allows you to tap on and just create that stripe. And what we want to do is we want to create 2 stripes down the center of the bridge of the nose with just a little bit of a line in between. In order to make the nose look slimmer, we want to come onto the top of the bridge of the nose. If you're somebody that has a slim nose and you want it to be a little wider, then you can go on the sides of the actual bridge of the nose. But if you're looking to slim it, you want to stay on the top. And then you can just kind of flick it up towards the eyebrows and run a little bit underneath. And we will always finish off a nose contour with our brightener. This is only 1/2. And if you're looking right now and you're like, this looks crazy, just trust the process. Now we're gonna talk about our last highlight shade, which is our brightening highlight. You may hear it called a pop highlight or your concealer shade. Any of those names, it's the same thing. It is the lightest shade in your palette, and it's used to create brightness in the center of the face, so that when someone looks at you, they're drawn to your eyes. It's the second half of a nose contour, and it's the area that you're gonna see a lot of people place under the eye, on the top of the lip, and in the center area of the chin. Now here's my troubleshooting tip for you with brightener. We've mitigated a lot of the concerns that come with brightening by adding a color corrector and our main shade into the area that most people have discoloration, which is that inner corner of the eye where they have dark circles. Here's the other thing to remember. When you put a light color onto a highly textured area of the face, it's only going to emphasize texture. So color always matters. That's why we want to take care of the darkest points in that area first. But I also encourage you to consider what depth of brightener you have. If you've color corrected and you put your main shade down and you feel like you're being really light-handed with your brightener and it's still really emphasizing texture, your brightener may be too light and you need to go up a shade. The same is true with really any part of your 3D foundation. So if you're using your main shade and you've taken care of that discoloration with a color corrector first, and it's really emphasizing texture, or it feels generally too light for your skin tone, then you may need a darker color. The lighter the color of our foundation on our skin, the more it will emphasize fine lines, wrinkles, large pores, any area that you have texture. So here's how I apply, for me, to highly textured areas. So I'm going to take the small end of my highlight or of my detail brush, and I'm just going to tap 1 time into my brightening highlight, and I'm going to start in that inner corner, and I'm just going to tap this on. Remember, at any point after we've put down a color corrector, we're only going to tap or stipple product on. We're not going to swipe it underneath. And if you've been using Seint's 3D foundation and you've been taught to leave this area alone and just add your brightener there, if you've noticed that it breaks up throughout the day or it really emphasizes that texture, go back to using your color corrector in your main shade first, and then strategically going in the inner and outer corner of the eye and using what's left on the brush to really marry that color from the inner and the outer portion together. And then you can go in and look and say like, okay, is there anywhere else that I might want a little bit more? So I have this one sunspot that just doesn't want to cover well. So I like to tap a little bit more of my brightener into that area. And I avoid going up under or above this eye bag that I have because it's just so highly textured that I leave it alone altogether. I'm gonna tap a little bit more on this sunspot. And then we want to make sure that we bring our brightener down the sides of the nose to hug that nose contour line. Like I said, the stripes from the contour itself are only 1/2 of a nose contour. You really get that slimming effect by adding that brightness to each side of the nose and then down the middle. But since these are highly textured areas, I like to do 1 little tap at a time, make sure I'm dispersing the product all over and keeping it really light-handed. So we did a little in the inner corner and down the nose. We're going to the outer corner, and now I'm using what's left on the brush to really marry those together. The beauty of creams is that they blend so well. As your skin starts to warm up to the cream, it like continues to blend. You're gonna find that you like love your makeup within like 30 minutes after you apply it, even more than when you first apply it, because of whatever happens with the warmth of our skin and those colors really marrying together so beautifully. You'll really see the magic of your makeup about 30 minutes after you apply. Now I'm going to go into my T-zone, which is this area in between and right above my brows. I'm just tapping a little bit of my brightener there. And I'm going to start down the nose. And then I'm going to use my finger just so I can get a good stripe. And this is the other part of the nose contour that we want to make sure we do. So we added a little bit to the outside and then a little bit down the middle, and you can tap it onto the top part of your nose. You can go above the Cupid's bow and into the middle area of the chin. And you might be looking now and you're like, okay, it's a little heavy-handed. It still looks a little too makeup-y. At least it does for me. Here's the magic step that you absolutely should never skip, and it's using your perfector sponge. The density of this sponge is meant to remove excess cream, so it is different than a sponge that applies liquid foundation. You want to make sure that you prep it. Getting the most out of this sponge is all in how you prep it. When I get out of the shower and I'm gonna do my hair, I run this under cold water. This is actually when I clean it as well, and I use a little bit of my face wash on there, and then I wring out the excess water that's in there until not a drip comes out, but I still grab a microfiber cloth and squeeze it some more, and then I let it sit there while I do my hair. Now, by the time I do my makeup, I consider this perfectly prepared, which means it is cool and damp, but it is by no means wet. And then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go anywhere where I'm marrying colors together and really make sure that I get a beautiful blend. And then I absolutely use this anywhere that I layered product. If you layer, I consider the perfector an absolute must for removing excess product, because even though we were incredibly light-handed in our application, you still may have a little bit of excess. And we want to remove that so we get the most skin-like finish. And it's never cakey or tacky. I'm definitely have to go into my smile lines. And then I'm going to use this to blend those areas where I added that brightener, just to make sure it looks really natural, and up onto my contour line over here. And now I have a really skin-like finish. It's not heavy or cakey or tacky at all. It just feels like a second skin. Okay, is there anywhere else that I want more coverage? Did this pull off too much in any one area? And the only area that I really notice is this darn sunspot. So I'm actually tapping in a little bit with my color corrector and my main shade together and just pressing it on in that one area. And then this scar right on the top of my nose. All of our lines are really blended well. We don't have any excess product, and it feels really light on the skin. We're gonna jump in to the final few steps, which are the detail work, the really fun part. So if you are somebody that loves warmth on the skin, you like that sun-kissed glow, if you will, that's where your bronzer comes in. The difference between a bronzer and a contour is that your contour provides coverage, and it is ashy, so it's meant to create shadow. Your bronzer is gonna be a sheer wash of warmth, adding that look of like the sunburn to your skin without the actual redness. And I'm gonna take the larger end of my blush and bronzer brush, and I'm gonna swirl. It's the only time that you're seeing me do anything other than one little tap, and I'm just swirling really lightly onto the top of the bristles of my brush. Our bronzer is the creamiest of all of the products that you have in your tin, so just know that, especially when you open it, it's super creamy. After it sits in your palette for a while, it'll start to dry down a little bit, but I only tell you that so that you know, start light-handed and build up. That's my general rule of thumb with this makeup in general, is it's just easier to add to it than it is to take it away. So I always like to build up everything in light layers so that I have the lightest hand of makeup, and I can always add more. And we like to bronze in the areas where the sun would naturally give us a sunburn. So that's the high points of the face, this area of the forehead, top of the cheekbones. You can go across the nose and the chin and then down the neck. And that's one of the best ways to keep your face matching your neck, is if you feel like your face is darker than your neck, then you can pull your bronzer down your neck as well. Add a little bit more over here, but we're just going in this C shape right here. I like to avoid my temple area because for me, my temples have started to like recess. I've lost that natural collagen that we have when we're younger in these areas. So I don't put my contour here and I don't put my bronzer here. I like to actually keep my brightener in this area so that I'm popping that color out. Because with the game of light and dark, light pops things out, dark pushes things back. Pull a little bit down my neck just to make sure I'm matching. And while we are talking about matching, if you are putting on your brightener, which is the shade that we just did, and you notice that your neck is light and you don't want to add bronzer, but your face looks a little bit darker, just add a little bit of brightener along the jawline. And then by adding that little bit lighter of a color here, that'll get you back to matching your neck. So you can kind of do it either way. Add bronzer if this is darker, or vice versa if that's lighter. Now we've bronzed very lightly on the high points of our face to give us a little bit of warmth and a little bit more glow. And I'm gonna move on to lip and cheek. Lip and cheeks are my absolute favorite. I think before I became an artist with Seint, I owned every shade because I just find them so fun. You can use them on your lips, on your cheeks. You can even use them on your eyes if you want to. But today I'm using one of my tried and true. It's just Desert Sunset. And you'll see a lot of people, and I will show you for the sake of demonstration, tap their finger and put their blush on this way, and then they use their brush. That's fine if you want to do that. The only reason that I avoid that is, in general, anytime I put anything down with my finger, I still have to go in with my brush and blend it out. So I find that it's just faster to go directly onto the brush, but also I don't like the fingerprint that I sometimes get when I do it this way. So my preference is to just tap it directly on to the brush itself. I like to go 2 fingers out from the nose, smile, and go onto that outside apple of the cheek, and then really just tap it up the contour line. And we're still tapping because we've already placed colors underneath. And then I can assess, make sure I can see it when I look forward. But we like to put our blush on and also work it up that contour line. Now we have a really nice blend there, but also that keeps things lifted. Now we're gonna add some to the lips. I'm gonna go to my multitasker brush. I'm actually gonna go into Suede Lip Liner, and I'm gonna line my lips. I don't have a lot of natural definition in my lips, so for me, this is pretty much a must. And I like the neutrality that you get with Suede Lip Liner. It allows you to create some definition on the lip without actually changing the overall color of your lipstick. And I'm gonna grab that same multitasker, and I'm just gonna put this on the end and apply that to the lips. And that's one of the cool things. Our lip and cheeks are formulated to be multi-use. Desert Sunset just has a little bit of like a shimmer to it, which I love for the summer. I mean, quite frankly, I love it all the time. I overall prefer the feeling of gloss on my lips. So when I'm using a satin shade with Seint, I almost always like to top it with a glossy lip and cheek. And I will swatch this for you so you can see how beautiful Desert Sunset is. It just has that natural, like, shimmering glow to it. So the last thing we're gonna do with our Seint 3D foundation is our illuminator. And today I've grabbed Honey Illuminator, and I'm actually gonna use my Perfector. And we're gonna swipe. Unlike with anything else, I am gonna generously swipe into this with my Perfector. And now we place our illuminator on that highest point of our cheekbone, kind of at the top of the area where we have our blush. But here's the trick. If you're somebody that has a lot of crow's feet, or your wrinkles under your eyes come out pretty far, just tap it in between, in that area where you have the least amount of texture, and you can add that a little bit of luminosity to the skin without emphasizing texture in that area. Because I know for me, that is a highly textured area, which is also why I prefer our cream illuminator over our powder. The powder illuminators are beautiful, like pow. But because they are so luminous, I don't know what else to call it, they really will emphasize texture, especially if you're heavy-handed with it. So that's it, folks. That's Seint's 3D foundation. And again, 3 troubleshooting tips for you. What are you using underneath your makeup? Be sure to avoid silicones. 2, if you have areas of discoloration on the face, are you starting with a color corrector and using it first? Because we want to match our darkest points first. And then when you apply, are you applying that color corrector and then stippling your product or pressing it on over top of it so you don't move your color corrector underneath? Because keeping that color corrector as our first shade that we put on our deepest discoloration first is the key to getting the best longevity for your makeup. So I hope you found this helpful. As always, I'm thankful that you guys are here, and we'll be back soon.